Scrappy Peeps, Susanna here today for the Scrap Room to share with you a layout I created using Pretty Little Studio Savannah Dreams from the September kit. That is the layout that I created, and let me share that process with you. So that sort of mixed media looking pattern paper is what I decided to use for the background of the layout. And then I have this hot pink here that I'm going to rip the edge of to give a little bit more of an organic feel to the layout, and that is going to be the left-hand border of the page. Now, you have a stark contrast there between that very hot pink and that sort of more mellow, subtle mixed media on the right-hand side. So in order to meld the two together, I'm going to take a little bit of gesso, and I'm just going to literally use my palette knife and do a Missy Whidden and meld those two together by rubbing the gesso across the two. You can see how it softens that really hot pink and ties it more into that more subtle mixed media color on the right hand side. I used a little bit more gesso than I wanted. I also wanted a softer transition, so I just took it's a kitchen paper towel actually, and just wiped off the edges. I have 4 pictures of my daughter, and I wanted to use all 4 of them and help use them to help with that transition from that pink to the mixed media. So I have these white squares. They're not squares, they're rectangles, Susanna, and I'm going to glue those down, and they are going to be a spot for me to be able to incorporate more color into the layout to make that transition from the really hot pink to that softer color palette. And so what I'm going to do is use that stencil there. It's a Tim Holtz stencil and some coordinating shimmers colors, and I'm just going to smush the colors through the stencil, or paint actually the color through the stencil, and add just splashes of color onto that white. It's very subtle, but you can see how that kind of creates more of a seamless transition from the left hand side of the page into that really wide open right hand side. I just had to get out my mixed media water jar there so that I could clean off my brush between colors. So then I'm going to use a blue. And you can see how that blue is really, really subtle down at the bottom of the page. And so by having it just be slightly darker, it kind of pops that blue down the bottom there. And a lot of this is going to be covered by the photos and the embellishments that I use on the page, but that's okay. I wanted it to be a subtle effect, which is what it ends up being. Those of you who have followed me and know my scrapbooking know that I like to use trios of things, and I like to create a visual triangle on my page to draw you through the title, the journaling, i.e. the story, and the photos that the story is telling, that the photos are the story of. You know what I wanted to say. This page is a deviation from that norm in that literally everything is on the left-hand side of the page here, and you've got that wide open space on the right-hand side. So a little bit, like I said, of a deviation from my norm, but sometimes I think it's good to step out of your box and challenge yourself with some things that are a little bit different. So in the, I believe this is from the add-on kit from the Scrap Room, are some cut-apart labels from Pretty Little Studio, and again the colors will all coordinate perfectly. So I'm taking a few of those, cutting them apart, and I'm using a hole punch actually to get those corners rounded the way that they appear in the label, and I'm going to use a few of those to punctuate the color from the mixed media, and also to sort of provide a shelf to house some of the embellishments that I'm going to use. I really did not use a lot of the pattern paper. It's just those 2 pieces, the hot pink and then the more mixed media, softer pastel-y colors. But I use a lot of the ephemera die cuts and other bits from the kit in order to provide some, it's almost like a cascade of photos and fun embellishments to look at. I do use a lot of the words as well that come in the embellishment add-on kit. So I'm just going to layer up the labels and the die cuts from the kit and create that cascade there. So you can see there's the hole punch that I'm using, and it takes out the perfect sort of quarter of the circle there to finish off the label, and so I don't have to fussy cut it. The type A highlighted, bolded, underlined in me really likes the perfect circle and not that fussy cut circle. So there's a couple of stickers, word stickers that will come in your kit too, and I will use a few of those. So you can see how the elements that I've got on that left side, hand side, really sort of tie in together, that pink and that more softer side. The bright green behind my daughter in these photos really it pops out as well against the contrast of that hot pink. So this is where I'm going to use a bunch of the words that cascade down the left-hand side of the page. I've got happy, I've got love, I've got okay, and then I'm just going to use hi, and then I put that life in to make happy life, so that it's almost like a phrase that runs down the page. And you can't tell that the title I'm going to put in, so where I have love, I'm going to use some alpha stickers and put in this girl, and that becomes the title of the page, and it gets lost in all of those other big words because there's no size difference to discriminate between the title and the others, but that's okay because all of those words are applicable. And I'm okay if you don't know that the title exactly is Love This Girl. I am doing what I normally do, and so I really create the layout and then glue everything down once I've committed to the placement of all of these things. And so I'm just using a Prima glue pen to glue everything down. And the placement of things does shift a little bit as I go through that, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. I am very impatient when it comes to mixed media stuff, so some of this shimmers is still pretty wet, but the shimmers actually helps hold a lot of the stuff down as well. A lot of it does curl up and lift up because the mixed media is wet. The gesso is still, it's not actually wet, it's just damp. But it's okay because I go back in later and I'll just use some liquid adhesive and squirt that underneath the photo, or like that, my ATG, and just get that down there. So that is going to be the bulk of the layout really that I create for the scrap room using Pretty Little Studio. This is Pretty Little Studio's first 12 by 12 printed collection, which is pretty awesome, and it was awesome that Rochelle was able to get that in the kit. I really think that's a big deal. These are great kits. You get 4 collections in the Flavor of the Month kit, and then you can add an embellishment collection, a pattern paper collection, as well as a cardstock collection. There is also the double shot kit as well, which I subscribe to, and in a couple of days I have a layout that I created with that to share with you as well. I am going to journal to the right of that bottom photo, just in a light gray pen so that it doesn't stand out, but it does work very well with the darkness of the shadow in my daughter's hair and that life and high, those dark collections, and it actually almost creates that visual triangle that I like so much. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the box down below. I look forward to reading your comments, and if you don't subscribe, I'd love to have you join me. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping in today. Take care.